Hey YouTube, Hayden here with another book summary. So today's book summary is about a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I read this book this week, really enjoyed it. The thesis is basically that there aren't self-made men and women. This idea of success, and especially the idea of success that we have in this Western culture of taking pride in not only doing things yourself, but taking credit for things to the nth degree. Like that you're taking the most credit. Like instead of recognizing your parent's role or recognizing a mentor's role, you're self-made. You hear about the self-made billionaires. And I like this thesis because it comes against a lot of what people talk about in books on success. And he uses quite a few different analogies and stories to get his point across. The first is about hockey players in Canada and soccer players in South America, and a study that was done on the professionals and when they were born. And it's very interesting to note that because of the way that these systems of sport are set up within these countries at formative ages, the younger, the peewees, how they're set up is for basically kids play, and the kids that are the older kids have a better shot of getting to the all-star teams, getting more practice time, getting better coaches. And what ends up happening is the majority of professional hockey players become either January, which is number one in the amount of professional hockey players, February, or March. And if it goes past October when you're born, you may as well kiss your dream of professional hockey goodbye. And it's this whole idea that we don't simply become outliers, which is the title of this book, something extraordinary, something special, something that stands out in the crowd. So a hockey player that's professional is an outlier. A singer that becomes famous is an outlier. We don't necessarily just work ourselves into that, but there are actually things that aren't controlled by us which can form and shape whether or not we can succeed at something. Now, the danger with this notion is that if you have this notion, it can be all too easy to become nihilistic and self-defeatist, and stop trying for things, stop pushing yourself, stop dreaming. Especially if you wanted to be that pro hockey player, you hear this and you're born in November, oh man, I'm so unlikely to be a hockey player, I might as well not even try. Now, that's the danger. You don't want to fall into that, but there is wisdom to be had in thinking of things from that perspective, the perspective of almost, in a sense, luck. There's an aspect of luck that's outside of us, and I know that some, there's a famous quote, I don't know who it's by, but basically it states that successful people get lucky because they put themselves in places because of their action to have more of a chance to be lucky. If you buy more lottery tickets, you have more of a chance to win the lottery, kind of idea. And that's true, and there's definitely something to be said about that, but there's also things that you can't change. There's things that you can't do, and there's just things that you receive through it's like an inheritance. It's nothing you did for it, you just got it. And that's the first idea that he brings, is there's an aspect in life of you having not done anything but getting some type of opportunity because of when you were born, or because of the color of your skin, or because of multiple different factors, because of who your parents were, He talks about Bill Gates in this. Bill Gates being someone who in grade school was able to begin coding more so than most people who were, college professors at the time, and how that formed him and how that shaped his success. It wasn't necessarily he was just a genius, but he put in the work. Malcom brings up the 10,000 hour rule in this book, and how to be like really great at something, you need to put in about 10,000 hours, which equates to about 5 years of full-time work. So it's a lot. So if you want to be a professional hockey player, you need to have put in 10,000 hours by the time you're like 18. If you want to be the standout cream of the crop at something. Now, in knowing this, I did another video on my Words of Wisdom playlist about how this 10,000 hour rule has began to translate into feeling like you can't learn things unless you put in that much time, and that you can't do things unless you put in that much time, and that's not true. What he's talking about is being the best of the best at something, being truly a master. And it takes about 10,000 hours. Multiple studies have shown this. Now, this idea of outliers, again, he's leaning into what I would really call the sovereignty of God, in a sense of what you're able to be and do with your life, and what you can be great at. And Peter Wagner brings up this in a book I'm going to summarize too, and Manage Oneself, that Ty Lopez recommended me. And he brings up this idea of focus on the things that you're good at. Focus on the opportunities that you've been given. What have you spent a lot of time in, and how can you utilize that? Obviously, you want to be able to enjoy it. I mean, that's a given. You need to be able to enjoy something, but really looking at your life and seeing what types of opportunities you've been given. I'm not going to go too much further into the ins and outs of Malcolm Gladwell's examples, because really the book is the thesis statement I just stated of you're not the sole reason for your success, but there's many other formative factors that give you the opportunity to be successful. And there's really an aspect of luck in regards to this. And there's no self-made men. This whole thesis, all he does for really the rest of the book is prove that point. He proves that point. He goes into airlines, and the culture of airlines, and how in one culture of airlines there was more crashes because of certain things within the culture. He goes into rice paddies, and how rice paddies have formed and shaped the way that Chinese people go about mathematics, and why they're so great at it. And just how there are things, that's another point he brings up, that it's not only like your parents or when you were born or the things most immediate, but the things your grandparents did, the things their grandparents did, and the things their grandparents did, and how this goes back. That the opportunity you're given really goes back, 500 years or more. And I think that's a cool perspective, especially in the midst of all these success books that are just talking about massive action, put in the most work, do the most you can, commit. He brings a fresh perspective of it's not all about you, and you're not the sole reason of how you can succeed. And you better look at the opportunities you've been given to succeed and look at them realistically. It reminds me of the prayer, God, grant me the serenity to, change the things that I can, or God grant me the wisdom to change the things that I can, the serenity, God grant me the courage to change the things that I can, the wisdom to change the things that I can't, and the serenity to know the difference. It's something like that. There's basically this aspect of there's things that you can't change about you. You were born in a certain country, you were born at a certain time, you were given certain opportunities. Now, what are you doing with those? Because you do have to do something. And I liked the book. It was enjoyable. I'm definitely going to be reading more of Malcolm Gladwell's stuff. I like the way that he writes. I like the way that he does research. He really, you can tell he's very learned. He really knows his stuff about how to bring up a topic or come to a conclusion, but bring in multiple validating points from many perspectives in order to in order to prove his points that he's making. But anyways, that was Outliers, guys. I recommend this book. It was a good one. If you liked this content, please like and subscribe below. I'll be doing more of these. Up next, I'll be doing Manage Oneself by Peter Wagner. I'm going to be doing Richest Man in Babylon very shortly. I've already read these books. I'm just going to reread them real quick, go back over them as I'm working, because I paint, so I can listen to audiobooks. This is what I do. Which is something we'll bring up in Peter Wagner's book, because that book is super important. You need to get that book. But anyways, yeah, Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, highly recommend it. You guys have a good day. Bye.